All right, good morning. We want to go into some discussions around politics. We want to get into some views from our youthful panel. Of course, the discussion and the discourse has always been how the youth are represented, and in this particular exercise this time round, there's been an uprising of sorts, and we want to delve into some of the issues surrounding that and get their views about what they see going on. So allow the panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start with you.
Thank you. My name is George Tuku. I'm a former student leader at Kenyatta University. I was the president of the Students' Union 2014-2015, and I recently participated at Jubilee nominations at Kawasukari MCA. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. My name is Lon Felix. He took over from me as the president at Kenyatta University. So I'm a youth leader and candidate for Senate in Busia County this coming election.
Which party?
I'm running as an independent.
Yes. All right, so I guess then we'll kick off with that story on the independence. Just to put that into perspective. Now, the independent presidential aspirants, among others, have protested what they say is a plot by IEBC to lock them out of the race by introducing hostile requirements. Now, during a meeting with IEBC officials, the aspirants said that the condition that they must provide 48,000 signatures, among others, could fail to see them make it to the ballot. Sam Gituku tells us more about this as they also undergo tests to establish whether they are mentally sound to lead the country.
The independents are a worried lot in their attempt to dethrone President Uhuru Kenyatta. Their biggest hurdle so far, a requirement by Section 29 of the Elections Act of 2011 that they must be endorsed by at least 40,000 voters who must not belong to any political party. That concern shared by candidates of smaller parties, as they too must ensure their list of supporters are from their political parties.
Clearly, IEBC has set up a trap to rule out and to cancel out independent candidates in Kenya.
I think you need to come up clean, Chair, whether you are trying to apply technicality in disqualifying people.
We cannot come and say, let's now do away with these provisions unilaterally. And that is the position of the Commission, that we must follow the law.
It is very unfortunate because it is affecting institutions. Somebody is already talking of it is a two-horse race.
Some of the independents, most of whom are in the race for the first time, feeling discriminated by IEBC in the conditions for submission of the list of endorsers. The deadline for submission was Monday midnight.
Yesterday I took my signatures. They were rejected on the technicality that they are not in Excel. That form that I was given, where anywhere in this thing I've never seen Excel written anywhere.
Don't worry. Present what you have and focus more on God than the sick people we have in this country.
Why don't you just sit with these difficult people who are not very difficult people? Resolve them, then we can move, Mr. Chairman. That's what I suggest.
The aspirants also challenging a constitutional requirement that presidential candidates must be university degree holders.
So I don't know where IEBC got this option that as for president you have to run for candidacy of Kenya's president with a degree. There is no such constitutional provision.
IEBC will receive the presidential candidates' papers this Sunday and Monday for clearance and issuance of nomination certificates. The 18 aspirants will be subjected to a thorough scrutiny on integrity and personality, including
if you are of unsound mind, then you would be disqualified, or if you are undischarged bankrupt, then you would also be disqualified.
The IEBC chair has also dismissed the opposition's threat of boycotting the August election based on the outcome of a case IEBC has lodged at the Court of Appeal seeking to regain power to alter presidential results declared at constituency level where errors exist.
There will be an election on 8th of August, and I want to urge those making such comments to respect the rule of law.
It's a tough battle the independent presidential candidates have to fight, on one hand having to deal with the perception that they enjoy low popularity among the electorate, perhaps caused by their late entry into the race, but on the other having to deal with the feeling that they have already been prejudiced against by the system. In the end, it seems it might be survival for the fittest. Sam Gituku, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Right, so of course some to be saying survival for the fittest, which it looks like that's the way it's going to go. I guess we'll start with you, who's going to run as an independent but on the Senate. But what is your view about this having the presidential candidate getting 48,000 signatures?
So my opinion will probably be two-pronged. The first one is this is a legal requirement, and in as much as a lot of responsibility lies with the IEBC to do sensitization, I would expect any serious candidate to also know what the law says, and so to the extent that they should have known that they need to submit 48,000 signatures, that's a given, really. However, on the other hand, IEBC has coordinated itself in a manner that really leaves a lot to be desired. The flow of information is extremely flawed. For example, up to this particular point, they have not gazetted independent candidates as required by law. As such,
so this is for everybody?
Yes, for everybody. So before you gazette an independent candidate, they are unable to move to your offices, pick those forms and go out and look for the signatures, because that is the instruction they relayed to us in the first instance. So they haven't gazetted people, yet they expect people to submit those signatures. They haven't released the register of voters. So how are you able to know that that whoever is signing my form is a registered voter in the first place? They haven't also, and the party, so this leaves a lot to be desired in the way it's coordinating its work, in the way it's releasing information to the candidates, and those are the things that need to be resolved then.
What about you, Judge?
Thank you. In this discussion about the 48,000 signatures for the presidential, if you narrow down to the other positions, for example, for my brother here who is vying for the Senate, you see that he's required to get about 2,000 signatures. In terms of considering that we are youth, how do you expect a youth to mobilize for 2,000 signatures, yet you are jobless, yet you are not able to have finances, you don't have resources to go around around the county? For example, for MCA, maybe you're required to have 500 signatures or 1,000 thereabout. How in the recent nominations you will see that many MCAs who are elected, not many of them are able to attain more than 500 votes. So in reality, you find that this does not relate to the current situation that is on ground. So I feel that the number is very high, and for specifically for youths, to empower the youths, maybe IEBC should come up with a specific clause so that they can empower the youths to have a lower number of signatures, probably 200, or if for the signature maybe can be 500, so that the youth, because necessarily this is not the main election. So the main purpose of coming up with the signature is really not very described. So I feel that the number is too high, and IEBC should do something specifically to empower the youths who are interested in buying various positions.
But I'll pick up an argument from a statement I had some people saying in that story as well, about if you're probably vying for this position, you're vying to get about 40. This is about 40 million Kenyans. Of course, that's not the number of registered voters, but the assumption is if you're vying, you have some sense of popularity. So bearing that in mind, somebody would ask, hawezi pata watu 500 kuweka signature, and yet the number of registered voters are probably more than that.
Well, I'll say for the president, it looks a bit reasonable, because if you look at the statistics, 48,000 signatures is like 1,000 signatures per county. So considering that you are interested in the presidential election, you'll be able to also campaign, and they expect that your campaigners are able to get the 48,000. Number two, the presidential position is not really open for youths to vie. So not many youths are able to have that, because of the age limit. Yeah. So not many youths are able to participate in collecting this huge number of signatures because it requires a very huge logistical budget. So we need to really empower the people, and specifically the youth, so that for the other positions, starting with the Senate, Member of Parliament, MCA, IEBC should empower the youth, because for example in my party Jubilee, I realized that when we are submitting or paying for the nomination fee, registration fee, Jubilee party has empowered the youth such that if the registration fee is 20,000, the youths are able to pay 10,000. If the nomination fee is 30,000, the youths were able to pay 15,000 for the MCA, and also for the MP it was the price was halved. So I think IEBC should borrow a leaf from the parties that are doing well, like Jubilee Party, and include such clauses that are there to empower the youth. Number two, you see that the current Jubilee government is really trying to empower the youth by introducing such as 30% rule for the tender. So really it is very relational for IEBC to borrow some of the ideas to empower the youth. Yes.
Right. What do you think, Felix, about that? I mean, is the number, should the number be lowered? Is it, you are now running as an independent, and definitely you've also been on the ground just like you have. What is your position about, or your thoughts about that number?
Actually, the candidates, the independent candidates, those running for the presidency, are not even arguing against the number of signatures. What the problem is that the flow of information has been flawed. If this was made clearly to people a month, 2 months ago, then they would have definitely be able to go around and mobilize that. Because running a campaign is multifaceted. There are 1,000 other priorities that are pressing you, so you don't, and mobilizing 48,000 people is a logistical nightmare in the first place, bearing in mind that it's not just anybody. You have to be prudent enough to try and establish that the person who is signing for you has registered as a voter, because in the alternative, if you take their 48,000 signatures and one is not, you follow below the requirements of the law and you have to be disqualified. So in the end, I think the question is IEBC has to get its act together from this point going forward to make sure that both the electorate and the aspirants have adequate information. And I don't think this is something that really needs a whole lot of debate. It's just about the commission putting up a guide in its entirety that simplifies the law, because not every aspirant who is reading has the resources to or access to legal advice. For example, there are very many young people who are out there and they're vying, they don't have access to lawyers. They depend on going to the IEBC website and getting information from there. That information is inadequate. Today, I'll be surprised, for example, if I'm taking my signatures there and then I'm told, oh, out of these 2,000 signatures, the spread has to be in this manner or something like that, because they have never, ever
like the candidates who say the format, you took it on Excel.
Yes. And the law does not mention Excel anywhere in the first place. If IEBC thought that submitting these signatures, first of all, how do you even submit signatures in Excel? You probably will be submitting names in an Excel format. So if it thought that submitting names through an Excel sheet will make verification much easier, that is something they would have said earlier. In fact, I would urge the presidential candidate whose signatures were rejected to walk back with those forms to the IEBC. The law does not mention anywhere that these signatures need to be in Excel. Never, nowhere. I have a pretty good understanding of the law, and I don't think it mentions that anywhere. So IEBC cannot inconvenience the candidate so that its officers have an easy work, so to say, because for me that would be the only rationale that exists there. So in the end, it lies about give people full and adequate information, so that when I'm coming with hard copies, you would say, we released an advert here releasing, stating all these requirements, or we posted an article on our website releasing all these requirements, and it's you as a candidate who did not follow those requirements. Yeah.
So this particular political season, we've seen a lot of sort of a rise, or even you can call it an uprising of the youth, and even the introduction of vying as an independent, where if before the youth might have been locked out in one area or another, but yet they feel that the people on the ground are tired of the status quo and want to move to the next level. What do you think have been the impediments for the youth, especially during this nomination exercise, in the build-up to the election? I mean, you vied yourself as an MCA,
yes.
So let's begin at that level of MCA. What are some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, if you look at the statistics in the voter register, you find that 60% of the voters are youths, but 60% of the people who are elected are not youths. It's an irony that youths are used by people who have money, by other forces to get them to power. Yet when these people get to power, for example, for a member of parliament, during a CDF committee, you expect to see that these youths are in the front line to be the people who are spearheading the various committees of the people who are elected. But you find that these people, the youths, are used to campaign because they have a lot of energy. But on the other hand, when the politicians are elected, when they clinch the positions, they do not remember the youths until the next election, until after 5 years, when they come again with handouts, and they repeat the same cycle round and round and round again. Youths have various challenges, because I think that it is now time for youths to assert ourselves during these positions. Let us have clear guidelines. When you are campaigning for someone, let's have clear guidelines so that you agree when you get there. What is my stake? How are we going to empower youth? Because we are told that youth are the leaders of tomorrow. I think tomorrow has come, and it is time that we take these challenges very seriously, so that we can be able to move to the next level.
So I'll just pick up from that. Why do you think, Felix, that problem exists, where the numbers clearly show that if 60% of the people are youth, then you expect it to reflect in the electorate? How come we've seen both that not reflecting and also a sense of voter apathy from the youth?
I would look at it from a number of perspectives. The first is what George refers to. Politics in this country is extremely expensive, in fact ridiculously so, and many young people cannot afford such vast amounts of money required to put up the logistical machinery and the facilitations that would involve there. And for me here, I have to shift the ball and just put it squarely in the court of the voters, that there are brilliant young people in this country who are ready to serve, and I have met them. If we go to the current parliament, for example, as a student leader and as a young leader, I have met very many young MPs. We've worked together to try and reform certain laws and all that, and honestly I find younger MPs more accessible, more willing to listen to the challenges that I face, more willing to front a legislative amendment that we are suggesting, and most importantly, they relate to the highest population within the country. However, the people, the criteria that majority of the electorate still ascribe to a leader in this country is, first, your material possession.
How deep your pockets?
How deep your pockets are. It's very difficult to run on issues, in as much as many of us are trying to do that. So that is a culture that needs to change, and that is a culture that should be changed by the electorate, because remember, politics and politicians respond to public opinion. So if as a politician the only way to achieve my ambition is by giving you 50 shillings, I'll be forced to look for the 50 shillings, and by that process we lock out young people. The second thing is we also have to admit that as a generation there is a sense of apathy amongst ourselves. Perhaps a number of young people are busy trying to make ends meet, and so they will not take an hour or two to go to the line and queue and vote for George. But I think in the end what we need to tell young people out there is that political leadership determines priorities in this country. If George was to become the member of county assembly for Kahawa, he will go into it knowing that around this place we have this number of population of young people who are working to stay here. Their challenges are security, because he lives that reality himself. If a young person goes to parliament today, they'll probably know, it's a year or 2 or 5 since they left college, and they know the struggle that they have gone through with inadequate funding in terms of higher education. And so it will be a priority to them when the executive is bringing a budget. It's easy for them to say, wait a minute, how much is going to a younger person? So in the end, young people need to know that politics may be messy, and yes, it can get messy, but it is important. It is the most crucial institution actually that guides how I relate with you, perhaps outside religion. And so you have to know that if you don't participate, someone else will participate, and that person will vote their priorities. They'll not vote your priorities. So if we had that understanding, then perhaps we would see this sense of apathy going out. We've seen, for example, Brexit, where it's only about 35% of young people who voted, and yet over 80% of young people wanted the United Kingdom to remain within the European Union. But in the end, it's the older generation that decided their destiny, and now they have to live in a country that has fewer interactions with the outside world and all that. So if you don't vote, someone else votes, and that person, when that person goes to the ballot, they vote their own priorities.
Alright, because even as we get also, just as you do that, just the final comments you could give also just to the youth who are now registered, because now it's too late to mobilize them to register, but the ones who have registered to vote and are waiting for August 8th. Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, there's been said time and again that bad leaders are elected because of good people who do not vote, and this needs to be mentioned again and again to the youth. And because a lot of youths are very ignorant of voting, most of them, statistics show that between 18 and 24 years, only 40% of the youths are registered in that age group, 18 to 24 years. This shows that most of the youths are, number one, ignorant in terms of voter registration. Of course, maybe now we can do nothing about it, but it needs to be communicated so that in future this trend can grow, can revolve and change. Number two, we find that most of the youths that are going to vie in various positions are prejudiced, in the sense that if Lon Felix, my friend here, is vying, you find that people ask, do you have a wife? Have you built a big mansion? Do you have a fleet of cars? So these are some of the prejudices that should not be in the current era. They should not be in the 21st century. And I think that we need to really sensitize our community so that we can advance from the older generation, where such material wealth were a determining factor of the equality of leadership. Because I believe the quality of leadership is not determined by those other factors, but it is determined by the quality of leadership that you offer, the kind of services that you give, the kind of attachment that you have to your people, the kind of understanding that you have to the ground, and the manifesto that you have to the people, but not the other factors that are material and that do not have any chance to determine your leadership position. So I urge all my fellow youths to participate in the elections, because most of them say that even if I don't vote, my vote doesn't count. I want to say that every vote counts, because everyone in this country, all the 19 million registered voters, every person has one vote. No one who has 5 votes. So if you do not vote, I do not vote, it goes like that cumulatively to the people. So in the coming elections, let us take part in these elections with a lot of zeal and zest. Thank you.
I would like to urge young people to exercise their right and vote. This country, at the national level and at the county levels, has a lot of problems. In the region, youth unemployment in Kenya is the highest. And so we need to hold our leadership to account. At the local level, if your member of county assembly did not perform, send them home. If your governor did not perform, send them home. If they misappropriated public funds, send them home. Because what in the end it means is, if 1 million shillings got lost, those are opportunities to younger people that were lost in the end. So get out first and vote. And then the second thing, before August 8th comes, I want to urge young people, especially who are active in politics and have a say in their political parties, whether you are in NASA or whether you are in Jubilee, we must agitate to ensure that youth issues are adopted in party platforms, because that is the only way they will become priorities. So I would like to see the youthful coalition within the opposition come together and make sure that issues of employment, issues of youth empowerment, issues of youth participation and involvement are central to their agenda. I'd like to see younger people in Jubilee make sure that, again, that is what happens. And to younger people and the electorate of Busia, I'll be coming home to present my case. I hope you listen to me and give me that support on the 8th.
All right,
thank you.
We wish you the best also. Wish you the best. Of course, just what we are trying to say is, if you're a youth, your politics, your ideals, everything represented will be within the party, but ultimately it is your vote that will be your voice. So go out there and vote, and be careful of how the politicians treat you. So of course, thank you guys so much for coming. Once again, all the best in your future endeavors. Hopefully we'll be meeting here under different circumstances. All right. So we also have a musical guest, Kabongo, and the band. They're going to be entertaining us. And then Fred Indimuli is also up next with Cheche, sitting in for Doha Mimo. Charles Odiambo and Mutegi Njao will be joining him for that conversation, and they'll be hosting Mwangi Kyunjuri, who is the cabinet secretary for devolution. So the hashtag is Cheche. Stay tuned.